Hey guys, it's Dustin, and welcome to the video. It's been a little while. It's good to see you guys. Yeah, today I wanted to talk about this game engine, this project that I've been working on. Since I noticed that it's been over a year since I released an update for it, and I've definitely not been working on it solid for a whole year. I kind of wanted to explain what I'm going through, what my goals are for this project, and kind of the goals for the future and all that. As you can see, it's even been since May 19th, 2022, since I've even worked on this project. But there has been quite a lot done since the last video that I think warrants me being able to show off. I kind of wanted to explain also um, the kind of journey I've been going on in my own development, understanding how to make games, how to get better at making games, making good software, just in general. I've been kind of going through this exploration phase where I'm trying to find my kind of like my forever environment where I can really sit down and plug away and actually create the things without having to worry about, oh, is this the right tool? Is this, that and the other? Um, I the reason why it's been so hard to work on this project, I have to admit, working on this project, I got a little bit overwhelmed with it. It is quite a big project, as in like there's just so much to do, so many systems. Um, and admittedly, when I sat down to work on this project, I I didn't do enough planning. I didn't do enough thinking about the actual bones of the engine itself. Instead, I thought I could, start making a game and then an engine would slowly, produce itself. I I've completely flipped on that understanding. I do think you need to do a lot more planning. I've kind of changed goals. I'm interested in making a game, but I'm also interested in developing tools that I can use in all of my future projects, so that, again, like I said, I can just sit down and work on it without worrying about, depending on someone else's release schedule for their engine, while giving me, complete control over the code I write and the code I use and all that. So this is gonna be kind of a longer video. I'm gonna explain. It's gonna be really rough too. I'm gonna explain, the game, the issues that I had with it, and my goals in the future, and kind of what I've been doing with all my time. So right now, I'm just gonna run the game and show off the progress that I made on it. So since the last video, you can see that I have a shield, a sword. There's some enemies moving around. I have a health bar. I have some more buttons up here. Um, yeah, so there's a little bit more gameplay. For instance, I can inspect, the different entities that are in front of me. There's also a semblance of a game engine, of a combat system. Kind of sucks, but it's a start. I just blocked his attack. So I'm kind of working through the concepts of the game itself. The gameplay ideas. There's a dungeon here. I think this was not very fleshed out when I first showed off this game engine, but now there's a nice little transition. I fixed a lot of bugs related to transporting from one location to another, from one world to another. That's what I'm calling it, at least. Um, as you can see, there's slopes. I'll show that off a little bit more in more detail in a bit. But yeah, there's a dungeon, and I have a lot of control over the mood, the environment, the different lighting effects in this dungeon right here. I honestly, I'm really falling in love with this art style, this design. It may look a little ugly, but it's one of those things where I kind of like the fact that it's a little bit ugly. It's in the style of those old school RPG games, which, growing up and when I got, interested in computing, I got kind of obsessed with those games, obsessed with creating them. As you can see, there's a little dialogue system. You know, there's quite a lot of stuff that I have put into this game that I haven't shown off yet. But yeah, like classic video games like Eye of the Beholder, Ultima, not Ultima, maybe the first Ultima, but it's been a while since I've explored all those games. But there's just a lot of DOS games, Apple II games, where it's very similar. One of the first projects I ever worked on was an RPG like this in, ASCII, and so it, my goal is that this would be my ultimate project, my ultimate game. Something that I'm going to pour years into and really make it something that I'm very proud of. Tell a story that I'm trying to, I'm still working through, but tell, this story that's in my head. Um, as you can see, there's slopes, so I can go up now. There's a lot of verticality in this game now, and I really want that to be the case. I love verticality in video games, and this is a game style that kind of lends itself to more, not less verticality, and so I kind of wanted to beat that and do something a little different. If I go over here, there's a little graveyard that I've been working through. Eventually, you're gonna be able to read the gravestones. Over here is a temple, and I think this is where the first dungeon will be. Besides, the starting dungeon, of course, but this will be like the first dungeon with the first boss battle and the first, item or whatever they have to collect to finish the game. Yeah, I really like being able to stand up at the top of the world and look out. One thing that I really like about this art style is, ignore the fact that it looks hideous. Like I haven't planned out how to fix all the empty space here, but eventually I'm gonna fill it out. Probably do some. I don't know. We'll see. But I really like the fact that it's really pixely and blocky because to me, having it being pixely and blocky kind of makes me want to explore things. It adds a level of obfuscation to it that if I could just see everything, I may be less inclined to go explore. I think it does promote exploration, while also being a art style that I can actually accomplish as a solo developer in my free time. Of course, I'm employed, so I have to balance development of this game and this project with that, and so I need it to be something I can actually accomplish in a single lifetime. Everything's really blocky, which I also really enjoy. Since everything's on a grid, it makes things like pathfinding, just rendering, everything like that. The actual size of the data is really nice and small, that kind of thing. It's really easy to compress. That, yeah. So there's a lot of benefits to it, and I think it's gonna be really helpful when I actually sit down to actually build out this game. Because right now I'm considering this a prototype, something to actually see, just a little bit of gameplay to test things out. Of course there's some weird bugs where the trees are floating, that kind of thing. I was working on a little bit of a divot here. So yeah, you can also now have there's a full FPS camera for the editor, which just makes things so nice so much nicer to work on. Also, I believe there is a way. Yeah, see, I can also now click to edit a cell, which also is really nice. And you see this blue dot, that's the current face that I'm going to be editing if I like, let's see. Or I think that points north, I guess, so it lets you know what the north face is to make it a little easier to put walls on. In the next iteration of this game, I'm going to make it not based on north cardinal directions because that's just really hard to actually work with. I felt like I was I don't know, I got really good at it where I knew where north was every single time, like no matter what direction I was facing. It was kind of weird, but yeah. As you can see, the menu system I think is looking a lot nicer. Or menu system, the GUI system I'm developing looks a lot nicer. It's got masking, it's got nice animations. I kind of like it. As you can see, like there's collapsers. There's quite a few elements that I've built into this GUI system that I think is pretty cool, and is definitely something I'm going to bring into the next game. So let's talk about the actual issues that I've had with this game. So like I said, it's such a big game. There's so much to work on that I was doing so much all at once that I wasn't really focusing on the core like engine itself, which is really problematic when I'm trying to make a game that I can also take and use for other games. I also recognize that I probably shouldn't work on something so ambitious. If I want to call myself a game developer, I really need to have more games out. Like the last time I released a game, I was like early college, and I don't feel great about that. I feel like if I want to be a game developer and call myself a game developer and be somewhat of an educator on YouTube, I need to actually have something to show for it. And if I'm going to choose a giant RPG open world, 3D thing, I don't think that's going to be very beneficial to me and myself and the direction I want to go in. So that being said, I have not been just, slacking off thinking this whole time. I've been going through a journey of development where I've worked on just a ton of different projects. I can bring up my GitHub just to show off. This is a new GitHub I've created, and these are all the projects I've worked on just in this new GitHub. And I have a problem where I always start new projects, but I'm also exploring tools, languages, and that stuff. I've written a ton of Nim. I've also now written a ton of Rust. I have some actual Rust projects that I finished. I've learned a lot from Rust that I'm bringing over to Nim in my development. Um, I've done a lot with C Sharp, with C++, with a whole bunch of different, with Godot. I've used some game engines, and I'm learning from each of them. I'm grabbing little pieces from each of them, and I'm gonna be taking everything that I've learned to put into this next iteration of the game engine that I want to build, or that I am building. So for example, let me bring up kind of the systems that have already been built out. I've been starting to work on some goals that I have for these systems. I haven't fleshed everything out yet. Again, like I said, I really just wanted to make this video because I felt like I needed to. So it's not really that well prepared, but bear with me. So yeah, these are the specific systems that I really want to nail down. I want it to be really good. And if I can get these really solid, I feel like I'm at the point where I can move forward and actually make, a really solid game. So, like I said, I've been working with a bunch of different frameworks, languages, and all that. I'm bringing a lot of what I've learned there into this engine. For example, I've been really inspired by Bevy, the Rust game framework. I really like the way that it did plugins, that it handles entities. I'm doing things a little differently, of course, but um, let's see if I can bring. So the plugin system I was really inspired by, and um, in learning Rust, I started to understand why this design was chosen. I started to agree with it more, and I started to see it as being something that I could bring into Nim, and it would also work really, really well and solve a lot of the problems that I was having with my other approaches to plugins and game systems and all that other stuff. And actually, let me bring up the project I've been working on, the actual engine that I've been working on. So again, I'm building a game along with the engine. It's the best way I can to make sure that the game engine that I'm building actually can support development of a game. As I'm building a game, I can, uh, it would highlight what systems are needed. I can see, that the asset pipeline's not going to work. That kind of thing. Um, so yeah, the plugin system, the goal is to allow that you can only hook into certain game states. So I don't want every plugin to have access to every single part of the game state to the system, the scene system. I don't want the plugins to have access to the entire world. I recognize that that can cause a lot of issues. And so I want plugins to be something that you can say, hey, I have this plugin, it only needs to know about these certain systems. Um, so that is a big goal of mine to hook. So like I can have a system that only runs on game load. I can have a system that only runs every update tick or update tick draw, that kind of thing. Yeah, and then selective access parts to the different game systems. And I'll go into more detail about that in a bit. Serialization. Now this is probably the biggest failure that I ran into with this game engine. It's a failure as in I definitely did do serialization, but I didn't really think about it as well as I should have. So in this game, I'm basically saving the entire game state and everything to disk, which is pretty cool. But I didn't really figure out how to save specific parts of the game, right? And I didn't figure out, the game profiles and all that other stuff. It was something that I was thinking, oh, I'll do later. That's probably one of the last things you add. No, I think it's one of the most important things to get right at the beginning. Having a good serialization system that supports different profiles, that is versioned, that also allows you to do migrations, so that if someone has a game saved from one version of the game, it can be easily migrated to a new version of the game. All things that I didn't even think about, which was a huge mistake on my part. And so this is something that I'm going to get right, that I've been trying to get right in my new system. So the goals of this is I want to be able to save and unsave, save and load arbitrary game data. I don't want to have to write a ton of code to convert, objects into JSON, JSON into objects, vice versa, and then heck, I don't want to use JSON anymore, and now I have to redo everything. I don't want any of that. I want it to all be handled. Nim has all the tools necessary to make that completely automated, and so I need to use those. I need to make sure those work well. I wanted to facilitate a pseudo hot loading system. For example, like in the last system, I could write and read from disk the entire game state. I want to have something very similar in this, so that if I make a change in my editor, it will recompile in the background, reload the game, and then or recompile in the background, relaunch the game, and reload the game state, and I'll be in the exact same location as I was before, but with the patched code and all that. So this is already something that I think I have pretty solid. All of these things I have a pretty good prototype for, and so I just need to kind of explore them further and develop them further and all that. Events, this is something that I've learned and picked up from Godot. So using Godot, I originally prototyped Beyond Age in Godot. Using it, I really enjoyed working with the signals in Godot, and I wanted to bring some of that reactivity to my game engines. And so one thing I really liked about Godot is you could have like the HUD, the heads-up display, and it doesn't need to know anything about your game state. All it has to do is react to signals. You can say, the player got damaged, subtract this amount of health from the display, or this is the value of the health system that you should display. I really like that, so that is something I want to enable in my game engine. Resource loading, art, entities. I still need to write out my goals for them, but I have some, vague goals. So for resources, I think you need to have like I really like the idea of having resource packs so that you can substitute easily, drag and drop resources in. Art, I really need to automate my art pipelines, and that's something that I've been working really hard on. For example, in my I think in Beyond Age, let's bring up the assets. So everything is very manual when it comes to the sprite sheet. I have to position everything in the sprite sheet myself. I guess this doesn't really have. Okay, it does. So everything in here I have to position myself. Let's say I resize an element or I move something. Now I have to rework everything, every sprite, and move them to a new location. And it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but I was hard coding basically the locations of each of those sprites in all of my games, which is not good. And the only reason why I've done that is because I didn't really like the texture packing tools that were out there. I didn't really have to pay for them. I didn't find any open source ones that I really liked working with that I would, you know, yeah, anyway. So, but, the more I think about it, the more I realize I can just come up with a really simple system that will blow away the previous way of doing it. And so I really should do that. And then finally, entities. I've kind of had a bad habit where my entity component systems I would use for all the obvious entities like the players, the zombies, the ghosts, all those things. But for things that were less entity-ish, I didn't use the system at all. And I feel like that I was really underutilizing the power of an entity component system. Why not have, maybe certain grass or the barrels or, all these other things be entities? Why not have everything be an entity? I don't know how far I want to take it, but I'm definitely leaning on the entity component system to handle more things. All right, so that was a whole lot. Let me bring up the current game engine and kind of just show that off. Oh, and I also want to mention another issue that I had with the previous game engine was I didn't necessarily want to tie myself to Raylib. It was always my goal to switch to my own custom renderer. And that's still my goal. I have a custom renderer called Coral that I'm eventually gonna switch to once I develop that out. Oh, I can't find it. Well, I'll show that off later, but I have a 2D framework that I was always going to switch to, or OpenGL framework, but that never really happened. And one thing that I did really poorly was Raylib was basically used throughout the code base, which made it incredibly hard to decouple myself from it. And so that is not at all what I'm doing anymore. I'm still using Raylib just to get things up and going. I do have a platform layer that I'm working on that will support Windows and everything like that. Haven't made too much progress on it, but for now I'm still using Raylib, but I've kept it at the boundaries. I have a boundary layer where I'm converting from Raylib concepts to pure NIM concepts. And I'm trying to lean on as many pure NIM libraries as I possibly can, because that's going to be it's going to be a lot less, DLLs and all this other, stuff that I have to integrate in. It's not really an important game to, this isn't a really, like, there's not a lot of there's no gameplay, let's be real, but everything else, well, I'm just basically using this as a way to develop this engine. So this is also a project that I'm very passionate about. It's a project I've been thinking about for a long time about building. Ever since the Oregon Trail, not the Oregon Trail, but the Oregon Trail with all the zombies came out, I've wanted to build this game. And so this is going to be a game called it's going to be called Apothecary. You have an apothecary that can take around the entire world, and your goal is to create medicines that combat certain illnesses and become the best apotheker around. There's going to be a lot of mythical creatures and really fun like villages. There's a village called Toadstool that's going to have a bunch of frogs that are all knights, and it's going to be really cool. So I think this is going to be a great project to actually develop this engine with, since it is pretty simple, right? There's not a lot of there's no physics really. Like it's uh, it's going to be a good project. So yeah, so I'm just going to show off just a few of the systems, how they are working right now. So let us bring up the let's do the game scene. So uh, the core way to extend and create your game is by creating these plugins. And these plugins are essentially just functions. And these functions can take in a number of different types of arguments. So you can have a load function that takes in just the commands. You can have a load function that takes in the game state, ents. Um, you can be very selective. And the way that's built out is I have this plugin thing where you can add. It's kind of hard to show off because it's a little, it's very generic and all that. But you have all these add functions, and you can add functions. You can give them functions that will be added to a bunch of state and basically turned into plugins. So the game scene is a scene, and the way that works is I have this scene manager that it doesn't know anything about what a plugin is, which is another thing that I'm really trying to do. I'm trying to keep each of my different like concepts, systems, and all that. I'm trying to keep them as isolated as possible so that I can rip them out and plug them back in if I need to. If I see that one was poorly designed, I shouldn't have to rework the like half the game engine just to either get around the bad design or implement a new one. So this game state this game scene manager basically just works with string IDs. And actually, this is the game state. What am I doing? Where's the scene? Oh, okay. Never mind. Sorry. This handles also scenes and stuff like that. Um, yeah, and so this game state object is also how I serialize out, the different profiles and all that, because everything that's on here gets saved. And so if your particular plugin needs some state, you will basically interface with this state system, request that state, and then you'll have access to it, and then you can actually, update it, and that state will be written to disk to the current save profile. We can see a little bit of the entity component system in action right here. So I have this ents, which is a self-made entity component system. There's definitely better entity component systems out there, like Polymorph for NIM. I created an entire video about it if you're curious. But I wanted to take concepts that I liked from Polymorph. I wanted to take concepts from another entity component system that I saw and kind of merge them together into my own, thing. And so right now it's really simple. This is basically the code. I have a lot to clean up. I need to clean this up a bit. But I think it works pretty well for what it needs to do. Um, but yeah, I'm going to go into more detail through through streaming. I think streaming is going to be something that I'm going to be trying to pursue a little bit more because I think it's going to work a little bit better with my schedule. It's a lot harder to sit down with these videos, edit them, deal with rendering them, and then uploading them while also working a full-time job and being a little bit shy and tired and all that. Um, so yeah. So let's talk about my goal. My goal in just kind of life and what I want to build, my projects and all that. So let me see if I can move my. Let's do that. Okay. I'm trying to, for one, make my actual setup, my video setup, a lot better. I'm trying to use better lighting, but I have a green screen now, so bring some more production value if possible. I'm going to be working a lot with my cousin Austin. We both have very similar passions, and I think we're a great team separated by thousands of miles because he's down in Florida and I'm up here on the West Coast. So, but we're still going to try to make it work. And I think one of our goals is we want to, just stream game development and just talk about games, talk about what we love about them, talk about programming, coding, things that we learned, whatever. So I think a lot of our streams are going to be really relaxed starting out, where I'll just be working on this project right here and I'll bring him on, or I'll bring in maybe someone from the Discord. If you guys want to talk and just hang out, let's do it. And we can make games. You can ask me some questions. We'll go over it. I think that'll be a lot of fun, and I think that'll be a good direction for me to take because I recognize that it's really hard for me to, at the end of the day, when I'm just exhausted, to sit down and actually work on a video. As much as I really want to, I really, really want to, but being a little, being shy, being introverted, being a little agoraphobic even, like I find myself having a really hard time, getting myself to the point where I can make videos. But streams are one of those things that I find I can probably do. I'm coding every single evening. I could probably turn on a camera and talk about what I'm doing because I love doing it. My wife's sick of me talking about everything too. No, she's not sick of it, but I can spare her and talk to you guys about what I'm working on a little bit more. Um, yeah, I mean this has been a long rambly video, but I feel like it needed to be made, and so I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys stick around and can see the progress of the game as I build it. And I'll be going into a lot more detail about this actual game and Nim and what I've learned with Nim and all of that. So stay tuned. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.